On June 19th, 2019, the nearly extinct Wukong race got their first glimmer of hope since its release. All 5 Wukong mains anxiously emerged from their caves, trying to build up the courage to see how their lives had changed, for better or for worse. The frame that I affectionately refer to as Monkey Fuck in my arsenal has been infamous for being, well, to put it politely, a raging dumpster fire. Having been pushed into the rework spotlight for a good long while, along with other frames like Voteban, it's finally time for the monkey to take center stage. And while I can hear a certain train man getting ready to make me chugga down some bleach for this opinion, I think that the monkey really needed one the most. Those of you who have watched the first part of my frame tier list probably remember that I thought so little of Wukong that I put him in his own tier. At the very bottom. As in, I considered him to be the absolute worst frame in the game. Because even though frames in low tier had some pretty clear issues, Wukong was on an entirely different level of garbage. Wukong did not give a single 1/3 of an iota of a damn. Wukong's only call to fame was the fact that he could not die. And okay mate, but that shouldn't be your main focus. At that point, you're just a gun with some energy twizzlers attached to it. You're like Gordon Freeman's model in Half-Life. Defy was cool, but the rest of your kit was doing first name fuck, last name all, and you don't even get the benefits of being a good weapon user like Chroma is. Anyways, I've already covered all my reasons in the tier list video, so before you invite me to your TED Talk on why I'm the fuckest of idiots, firstly, I already know that, I mean Loki. Secondly, I encourage you to watch that tier list video to get a better idea of where I'm coming from in regards to the monkey. But if you're too lazy to watch that, here's a quick rundown. His one was garbage. In fact, some genius decided that a DPS ability, an ability that scaled off of melee mods, mind you, needed a hitbox that made it deal zeros. My rectum clenches with anger. Compare it to Gara's Held One variant or Korra's one, both of which have sizable area of effects and both of which prove that the winners are those with thirst. Its narrowness meant that, sure, you could spend energy to kill that dude, or, and hear me out here, you could take this and do this. I said in my Wisp video that the less area a damage power covers, the higher its damage output should be. Because when you get into that minimal area territory, powers start having to compete with your arsenal. And weapons can easily overtake powers in terms of DPS unless they get some incredible scaling. But Wukong's one covered such little area that its damage output would have to be blown to absurd levels for it to be worth using. And if you have a problem with the kind of balancing logic that I'm laying out here, I'd like to present the reason as to why Wukong's one was removed.
It's hard to do single target ability. Like, single target abilities just don't have much of a place in the game at the moment. Because generally weapons will out DPS them.
Yep.
There's very little point to them. So that one is bye-bye.
Yeah.
Defy was... Defy, let's be honest, Defy was Wukong's passive, more or less. You tapped it on and only really touched it about as often as you scratched your ass. His only saving grace, and it did nothing for the team, for objectives, or for handling enemies. So, as you can tell, we're starting off about as strong as a Skyrim physics bridge. Cloudwalker was probably the worst power in the game. I'm more or less sold on that at this point. It was a stealth power that couldn't use melee multipliers. It was for some reason both a duration and a drain power. It moved slow as hell. You had operators that could do the same job, and its use for survivability was a tiny bit redundant, given the whole the Defy button. As for Primal Fury, well, damage-wise, it was okay, but ironically, it suffered in range. Wukong's legendary staff suffered in range.
I would like to remind you that Wukong's staff, according to his own lore,
can reach as far as the moon! But here, it struggled to hit enemies 3 meters in front of his face, with a primed reach on! How do you fuck up this badly? His 4 was also indirectly nerfed when melee as a whole was changed to not bypass walls anymore, which further shafted the monkey. So, put it this way, take Wukong's status of being at rock bottom and combine him with having Pablo as a savior, and you know, you got yourself a recipe for a pretty good rework. For one thing, his Iron Jab? It's gone. It was tossed into the Shadow Realm to be pissed on by Super Jump. Now, Iron Jab could technically have been saved. If you changed the animation to be more akin to something like Gara's Sweep, it would be fine. But they went for something different and gave him something that has always had a ass track record, that being a summoned minion. A bit of a personal spiel here, I was practically on my knees, begging, praying that this minion would be good. And by good, I mean damage-wise. Because summoned minions have pretty much always been garbage in the damage department. Anaris' sand clones, Atlas's golems, Ballistica Prime's ghosts, Cyanoid Heliocore's ghost. Even Necros's shadows weren't all that amazing when it comes to damage. Hell, even Nyx's mind control target isn't exactly all there, but that's besides the point. There is only one exception to this in my opinion, and that is Equinox with her Metamorphosis augment. This minion, up until Wukong's rework, was the only summonable minion that I ever considered to be viable in usual gameplay, at least in terms of damage output. Now, you could argue Venari, but Venari has a cooldown on her strongest attack, is melee only, can only hit one target at a time, can only do her strongest attack if she's in a certain mode, and set attack doesn't even utilize mods like swipe and sharpen claws, which is just why? So let me tell you, I was waiting with bated breath. I had been waiting for so fucking long for a frame with a minion that actually did more than just give the enemies foreskin massages. It had been far too long. After countless failed attempts, was this going to be it? Was not Goku, not that one, going to be the minion frame of my dreams? Yeah, he is. It took this long, but Wukong is our first ever frame with a viable summon built into his kit. Wukong's twin not only takes your weapon mods into account, but also provides a 2x damage multiplier. While true, this isn't nearly as much damage that the Metamorphosis clone can put out, Wukong's is far chunkier, doesn't have a duration, doesn't require a mod slot, and is more controllable. That is to say, you can have it teleport to you at will when you come out of Cloudwalker, you can mark individual targets, which take more damage by the way, it can be commanded to use a crowd control, which we'll get into in a minute, and you have more control over the weapon type it uses. I personally have been running a Wukong with no melee weapon, which allows you to bypass the whole mechanic of the twin using melee when you use ranged and vice versa. The clone's effectiveness will depend heavily on your arsenal and your mod loadouts, and certain weapons work better than others. Giving my twin an Exorcist, Opticore, or Maradetron caused him to go haywire, running around and introducing enemies to Fuckville population them, whilst using something like a Dread resulted in what scientists would call hot garbage. There's also weapons that the AI is not exactly sure how to use, such as the Redeemer with the bullet dance stance. Instead of using the gunshots at range, it just kind of walks up and yeets enemies with a shockwave. Not at all what I was hoping for, but hilarious nonetheless. Monkey also got a new augment that grants him a crowd control, and not just a standard 5-meter crowd control either. Oh no! Try a stomp crowd control with a base radius of 20 meters. Why did Wukong need this? Fuck if I know, don't question it! Specifically, the clone is the one commanded to cast the crowd control, meaning if you're in something like an interception, you can mark a target from far away that's capping a point, and your twin will go over and quite literally stomp their face in. So yeah, Wukong has successfully filled the role of having a great summon, and this was just his first change. Golly gee, I'm already missing Old Monkey. If any power was going to be removed, however, I was expecting it to be Cloudwalker. While true, his one was about as effective as armor made out of graham crackers and tinfoil, it still could have been salvaged. I mean, granted, I don't miss it. I would take me and myself over it any day. But Cloudwalker had literally no use. That is not hyperbole either. Anything it did and anything that you think that it could do, you could use operators for. But surprisingly, they kept it, and now it works. So Monkey Man is still plenty tanky. In fact, at the time of writing, I have yet to die once with him. But with the old Defy gone, that does certainly boost Cloudwalker up as a power that you should be using more often. It's a great heal for both you and your twin, and as mentioned before, it allows for instant repositioning of your twin if he happens to get his ass stuck in a wall someplace. But what's also great is its ability to open up enemies to finishers. Now, this was actually a thing with the power originally, but old Cloudwalker at the time was far too slow. In fact, an operator with a specific focus node could get finishers faster than it could. With its new speed, however, in the ability to melee right out of the cloud, it now has more of a use than just healing. Specifically, an easy peasy way to deal with heavy units. So I'll be damned. H3H3's Vape Nation lives. Defy is where some folk were losing their damn minds, like it was a sign of Armageddon that it was being nerfed, as if Pablo was Frieza about to blow up the monkey's planet. But, like I said earlier, it was pretty much impossible to make Wukong worse at this point. Defy, I will admit, is probably his least useful ability now, though it does depend on your build, and when I say least useful, note that I am not saying it's bad. I could say, for example, that Octavia's least useful ability is... What is her least useful ability? Well, for the sake of argument, I could say that Octavia's 2 is her least useful ability, and yet it still puts in some work for her kits. Defy is the same way. It absorbs damage at a good rate, it has good base range, its damage wave bypasses walls, and the twin will not only cast an instance of Defy with you, but it also shares the same absorb pool, which is kind of good shit. Where it lacks, however, is in the actual damage. At first, I thought the damage was going to be better than it actually is. In fact, I kind of had some good hopes that it would get stronger the higher enemy levels got. At the very least, I felt like it would be a good option for any trash units. Unfortunately, while you do get more damage return from higher level enemies, their armor and health outscales whatever damage the wave will put out after a certain point. So that is disappointing. But on the plus side, Defy's armor boost is pretty significant, and you can see a side-by-side of damage intake here. And this is without the use of adaptation, which I normally run. And for shits and giggles, here's the armor bonus plus adaptation. This is going to take a while. The armor bonus also has a pretty hefty duration, and even with frames like Mesa and Saren on the team, it's not hard at all to hit the armor cap, I find, due to its efficiency at absorbing damage. Defy also applies this armor bonus to your twin, who already gets a bonus health multiplier depending on your power strength. By the way, if you want some easy bonus health for your twin but can't find mod slots for more power strength, consider getting the Aura mod, Growing Power, and the Kit Gun Arcane, Pax Bolt. Combine the giant health pool that your clone has and the armor bonuses you can get, and this duo can be incredibly tanky. So while Defy is no longer the only thing that Wukong does, it's still very much useful. It's just not as standout as the rest of his powers. Boo-hoo, I'm so sad. Monkey Fuck's Exalted Weapon was also notorious for being kind of poo-poo. Damage was good, especially with its augment, but its range was absolutely pitiful. It also forced players to hunker down and only use his 4 because the best range was locked to combo count, which was an ungodly terrible decision. And the universal melee nerf also affected it, as mentioned before. But even if you had the extra range with the combo count, like mentioned earlier, its hitboxes were some of the worst shit I have ever seen. So, how does his new pole hold up? Well, if having an attack that can hit opponents from up to 20 meters away isn't a good enough of a descriptor, then let's just say it's a lot better than before. Now, the pole does still have some very wonky hitboxes. Neutral attack, for example, has its hitbox in this area rather than your crosshair. So in order to get the most coverage with this attack, you have to angle your view so that enemies are slightly to your right. The same also happens with the first hit, a forward attack. The best range actually comes far to the left of the screen, not the center of the crosshair. So again, you have to position your camera at a weird angle. And while this is all still very frustrating, and seriously D, how is this shit not contesting? The fact that the pole has an actual range value now dampers the problem at least a little bit. On top of the increased range, his 4 augment got buffed, so it hurts even more now. And remember how I said that the melee nerf affected his 4 so that it couldn't go through walls anymore? This is something that I would usually make a big deal about. Anyone who watches my content likely knows that I think that having a damage-dealing power that ignores walls and other obstacles is kind of a big deal. It speeds up killing dramatically. It's a big reason why frames like Equinox and Saren are so damn effective at room clearing. Put it this way, imagine a Mesa with wall hack peacemakers. It really is a big deal. Well, I'm not going to complain about that here, because Pablo thought of a clever solution that doesn't just involve giving the pole wall intangibility. That solution is your clone. Your twin will be handling the things that you cannot see, effectively giving Wukong's Exalted Weapon a unique type of coverage. And it's not just some gimmick either. That clone handles the pole incredibly well. AI followers have been notorious for being well, to borrow from internet historian, more A than I. But this guy doesn't pussyfoot around. While it won't do optimal movements towards enemies, it does beeline them, and it handles them quite well. Because of all these changes, this is without a doubt a giant buff to his 4, which was desperately needed. Overall, while it could just be the euphoria of the rework being new, this just might be the best rework to date in my opinion. But this also could just be my bias talking. I did think that Wukong was the worst frame in the game, and the rework also provided me with an incredibly valuable minion frame, something that I've been wanting for the past 4 or so years. So yeah, my bias is speaking a bit, but the comments will likely set me straight. But I really do believe that this rework did a lot. Wukong is now a great crowd controller, a great damage dealer, a wielder of a truly unique mechanic, all while still being an incredibly tanky frame. Hell, I didn't even delve into his new passive that gives him 3 get out of jail free cards, which, by the way, I've not even had proc yet because of his buffed health, defies armor boost, and adaptation. But if I did proc it, yeah, having 3 immortality procs is a little handy, which also links into his lore, what with him being an overpowered playground OC that pissed on the Buddha that one time. This is canon to Wukong's character. So, congrats to the original 5 Wukong mains for escaping extinction. Ya crazy monkey fucks. Now, when are you gonna catch that train, DE?